What? Hey, welcome to the channel. I wanted to start this episode with a warning. This episode gets a little long. I've tried my hardest to whittle it down to the most essential bits of information. If you're looking to install a ladder rack, even if you don't install this particular one, it's going to raise some questions. It's going to make you think about your purchase. There's definitely some surprises that I came across, so I'm just trying to pay it forward, give a little insight. I didn't want this episode to just be another time lapse of me installing a ladder rack. There's enough time-lapse videos out there. I'm trying to provide something a little bit different. I'm trying to provide some educational, some informational content for people. I included chapters in the description so you can jump to different parts of the video. So feel free to skip to whatever part of the video you're interested in. If you jump into a project like this without doing any research ahead of time, you're gonna set yourself up for a lot of trial and error, basically. So, if you haven't done this sort of thing before, 20 minutes might save you hours of heartache. Maybe. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Really excited about the ladder rack because it's actually gonna function as a roof rack and a means to mount my solar. Since the roof on my trailer isn't really designed to take a lot of weight, it's not meant to be walked on, this is going to be how we accomplish those two things. The solar is going to be recessed within the crossbars of the ladder rack, and the roof deck will hopefully be mounted on top of the crossbars. So I went with a company called Vevor, or Vevor, I'm not really sure how you say it. Now they don't tell you this, but the design will allow you to kind of shorten it down. A lot of the ladder racks, you end up with crossbars that are like a foot or more off the top of the trailer. And I think that's because some trailers have a curved roof. They're just trying to make it as universal as possible. That's kind of why I went with it. The fact that I can cut it down, I'm sure I'm voiding the warranty, but you'll see. I think I'm still maintaining the original specifications for how it's bolted together. I'm just shortening the tube. We'll get into that, but this is a universal system. This can be mounted on a trailer that's just over 6 feet wide, all the way up to a trailer that's over 8 feet wide. And it claims that it's good for 600 pounds. But I'm confused because if you actually read in the description, it says max load up to 330 pounds. This comes in a kit of 2 bars. Even if it's 330 per bar, that's obviously 660 pounds total. So I don't know, there's a little bit of a discrepancy on that website, but it's a heavy duty aluminum crossbar. If you look at other aluminum ladder racks, the tubing that they use, it's more of a square tube, and this is like a double stacked height, so it's actually like a rectangular tube. I think that's what gives it a higher load rating. I definitely wanted aluminum. There's a lot of steel ones out there that are going to be cheaper and probably will hold just as much, if not more weight, but it's an aluminum trailer. Why wouldn't I want to go with the aluminum? You can expect to pay on their website, it's about $160 for one set. I got 2 because I'm doing the solar mounting and the roof rack. I'll show you the components that make up this system. Picture instructions, don't expect much there. It's pretty straightforward, but instructions are a little lacking. Alright, first part we have, this is the part that actually gets mounted to the side of the trailer. And that's another reason why I went with this system. Most are going to mount on the side. It fits in kind of a slot, and then you screw in through the side and you go through the outer metal and the beam behind it inside. It's a very solid mounting method that way. And then also, you're not putting extra holes in your roof. Slap that on there, and then next, alright, so this goes on the side. This will slide on, and then from there you're going to have your crossbars. And the crossbars, They're buried in this a ways down, but it's a 3-piece crossbar. You get the 2 end sections and a middle section that is recessed into the outer tubes. That's what's giving you the flexibility and width. This bracket has a channel, and you get these square nuts that you'll drop into place. You'll have 2 of them that you'll put 2 bolts in there, and that's how you secure these 2 pieces together. But you can see these holes are down low. You have all this space. I don't know why I can't drill 2 holes up here, or even 1 hole here and 1 hole up here, and secure it that way. Effectively shorten the height. And then these have a nice, it's kind of a softer plastic. It's not quite rubber, but it is very forgiving, very soft. Yeah. And then this is powder coated. It's got a nice finish on it. There is some blemishes on there, but yes, aluminum can corrode, but it's not anything like steel. So the fact that it's aluminum plus a powder coating, this is going to look great for years to come. And that intro video where I had one of these brackets snap off on me, what happened was I had mounted at least 3 or 4 of them prior to that, no issues whatsoever. And then I had one fail, and I was kind of flabbergasted, like, what just happened? But I think I just had a fluke. I think it was just a bad weld. I don't know if this is machine welded or hand welded. It's a tiny bead of weld, and I think the aim was just a little off. Doesn't give you a lot of confidence. I've definitely load tested everyone since that happened and haven't had any other failures. So I ended up buying this through eBay. I contacted the company directly, and as soon as they found out that I bought it through eBay, communications with them came to a complete stop. Then I had to reach out to the eBay seller, and they didn't communicate super well, but it wasn't maybe a week and a half, and I had another box at my door. I didn't know it was coming to my door, but they got me a replacement, so I can't complain about that. I'm happy. I got another one. Hopefully we don't get any more failures. That's going to be the goal here today. We're going to try to mount the roof rack. Spoiler alert, it takes a while. It's kind of a tedious process putting these all together. If you don't have to modify them like I did, it'll fly up a lot faster. We're going to get that mounted. I think the
roof deck
will be addressed at a later time. I still have to think about how I'm going to do that, but let's get to it.
So at the top corner of most trailers is what's called a top rail trim. This corner transition piece ties together the roof and the top of the wall. It's made of a thicker gauge aluminum and is riveted or screwed to the top rail of the trailer frame. The ladder rack was designed to be mounted on this rail trim and secured with long screws that will go through several layers of metal, including the top rail. You can see how nicely the bracket rests within the recessed portion of the rail trim, and once secured, it will be flush and square to the trailer. So once I decide where the brackets go, chances are there's going to be a few rivets in the way. Any rivets that are in the way will have to be drilled out and removed because I need a flat mounting surface. With each rivet that is removed, typically at least 2 screws will take its place, securing not only the bracket but also the rail trim to the trailer once again. In fact, the screws will go through more layers of the trailer framing, making a stronger connection than the factory rivets. So what I've decided at this point is I'd like to place the first bracket as close to the corner as possible. So I'll have to drill out 3 rivets for this bracket. Now before I go any further, I decided it's probably a good idea to go inside the trailer and make sure all the wiring was out of the way before I started sending screws through the wall. Now I should mention I went with a stainless steel hex head screw. I really wanted self-tapping screws to save time, but I couldn't find them in the size I wanted. So I ended up going with the number 10 2-inch long hex head stainless screw, which means I have to do a lot of pre-drilling now. So I should mention here that I'm sealing behind the bracket. They don't say anything about doing this in the instructions. Instructions are kind of a joke. If this is just an enclosed trailer that's going to haul a few things, you don't have insulation in the walls, a little bit of water, if any gets in at all, not a big deal. But since this is going to be a camper, I wanted to make sure that everything is as watertight as possible. And if you've seen my other videos, you know how much I love this 3M Marine Fast Cure sealant. I use it everywhere. So if you're curious what you're hearing in the background this whole time, these two crazies. Lisa's out on a ride with her horse and they're just having a fit. Oh, they're only showing 2. That's kind of lame. I don't know why they would put 4 holes if you only need 2. I can't see a reason why you would have to customize that particular thing. 2 more for the opposite side. We're still 1 short. Is that just like a requirement for these companies to just short you 1 bolt just to drive you crazy? Off to a great start. Alright, so then I need to find the middle piece. This middle piece, it looks like that's where they want you to use these square nuts. If you've ever worked with extruded aluminum 80/20 or unistrut, that's kind of the same sort of system. I think they call them T-nuts. I like how this system works so far. Pretty intuitive. That channel has to line up with the holes on this side. And then I'm just going to take one of these nuts. So they're not showing me to use a washer, but why wouldn't you? Unless it doesn't fit. So the next step was sadly to take it all apart. I realized that in order to measure the crossbar to get it to the right width, I needed to find the center of that middle piece. So I took it apart. Once I measured between the 2 brackets that were installed, I could go back to that middle piece of the crossbar and measure it and mark it. And then I'd know just how far the outside tubing would go over the middle section. If that makes any sense, I hope it does. Then I was able to tighten everything down and it's ready for a test fit. But first, you can see in this picture here how tall those brackets are. I think it's time to cut them down. So here I am using a cutoff wheel. I definitely didn't love how this turned out, but it was the only option I had at the time. I don't know if you can tell, this is I feel your pain, buddy. I think what he was trying to say is, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little bit lower. This is the first test fit. I mean, it's not crazy tall, but they never stop. I kind of want to get it lower. Now, lucky for me, I have a good friend who buys just about every tool under the sun, so luckily he's letting me borrow this one. But first, I'm actually going to drill some new holes in the brackets to replace the ones I cut off. So after that first test fit, I decided I'm going as short as I possibly can. So instead of doing 2 holes below like the original design, I'm going to do 1 hole below the diagonal arm and 1 above. So keep in mind that this piece slides over the bracket we already installed, and that bracket that it slides over goes to the very top of this piece. It was actually my buddy John, the same friend that lent me the miter saw. He was just stopping over quick. I honestly don't remember why. Pretty sure he just came over to do this. Anyway, it's time to get back to it, and I'm excited to try out this new miter saw, so here we go.
That is a beautiful cut.
Well, here it is. 2 brackets and the crossbar thrown up there. Obviously it still needs to be bolted together, but you can kind of see how it looks now. Everything's shortened down. I think it looks great. And here's a before and after comparison shot. I have to say it, I just think it looks stupid high before. Even with a curved roof, it doesn't need to be that high. Looks great now though, that's all that matters. So there you go, that's 1 crossbar more or less installed. I'm just going to repeat the process across the top of the trailer. And after my inevitable failure that's coming up in just a second, I'll just speed things up and we'll finish with the rest of the time lapse.
What? That's crazy. This is supposed to be rated for 300 some pounds and I can't even mount the thing without it breaking? Yikes.
Yeah, that was no good. That was a little disconcerting to say the least. If you didn't check it out already, you can go back to the beginning of my video where I explain what happened after this. I'm really going to speed things up now because nobody's more ready than I am for this project to be over. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode. Obviously there's still more to do with this project. I have to bolt everything together. I have to add all the crossbars. But here's a little sneak peek of what's coming up. I'm going to be working on the crossbars, adding angle brackets so that we can mount the solar. I'm really excited for the coming episodes, getting into the solar, getting back into the trailer, and starting to work on the wiring, electrical, insulating, all that good stuff. Lots more to come. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.